Eli, thanks for taking the time to talk to Mudder and Guide about everything you guys have going on with Tough Mudder these days. You guys have had a lot of news, I feel like, in this last week. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels every about this time every year. It feels like there's an overwhelming amount of news and new things coming out. So it's nothing new, but it is exciting new stuff. So happy to talk about it.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I want to touch on is that you guys brought back your pro team again this year and added Allison Ty and Corinna Coffin. So from kind of an outsider looking in, it seems like with your team now, you kind of all the different aspects of athlete going into the season. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your the pro team and kind of how you went about finding the athletes on the team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is that, we always have wanted to have athletes like this representing Tough Mudder. We've always had, people in this community that very much reflect the values of the organization and the spirit of the event. And we think that these guys are all not just amazing athletes, but first and foremost, just really, really good people. People that are at the event that are really, promoting like a really good spirit of teamwork and camaraderie. And if you know any of these athletes, then or have talked to them, then you know that that's definitely the case. But from a competitive and an athletic performance perspective, these guys really do represent kind of the full gamut of athletic achievements that are that we are promoting now. So you have your long distance athletes like Allison Ty and Ryan Atkins and Lindsay and Hunter in the past, but not so much these days. But who are really the top tier athletes, kind of pushing the ability on the long distance competitive events. So like World's Toughest Mudder, and then even tougher Mudder, the 10 mile. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum right now, you have Corinna and Hunter, who won last year's the first ever TMX championship event. So they're kind of representing a new hybrid type of athlete that we're exploring the world of now as we roll this out more. So we think we've come up with a really great team of people who represent not just Tough Mudder and put a face to the brand that is that we're really proud to have, but who really do embody the kind of perfect athlete for each one of these disciplines that we're now moving into.
Yeah, and when I saw the announcement, I think the hardest box to put anybody in is to put like Ryan Atkins in one box, because he seems to be pretty good at just about everything, even though we all know that he excels definitely at those really long distance races like World's Toughest Mudder, and that's where we really get to see him shine. But as I was writing the article that we put out, I was almost like, well, it's hard to put Ryan and Lindsay in some cases as well into one box of like where their athleticism is, which
yeah. I agree. You have Ryan and Lindsay both in going all the way to the the finals of TMX last year against people who were people like for Lindsay, people like Margot Alvarez and Stacey Tovar and Corinna, who are very, very solid CrossFit athletes. So their discipline is a hard one to pin down. They seem to be really good at everything. They definitely have their specialties, but they seem to be able to put their mind, whatever they want to put their mind towards training for, they don't seem to have a problem with adapting to. So we're still looking for their weaknesses. They're our athletes, but we kind of want to find things that are going to push them and challenge them. So it's pretty cool that they're able to do that.
Yeah, and when you say pushing challenges, I think that's one of the things that I really like about Tough Mudder as a brand in general, that you guys, like, your obstacles are not they're not just physically grueling, all of them. Some of them require a little bit of the mental aspect or problem solving to achieve them, which I think is something that draws in a lot of the, like your core audience is still the people who are just there to have fun, to do the course, to have their own personal achievements. But I wonder now, and maybe you can talk to this, because obviously we just put out news that you guys have committed $500,000 in prizes this year to the competitive events from TMX, Tougher Mudder, Toughest Mudder, and World's Toughest Mudder. Like, how are you guys kind of balancing out that core philosophy of like, this is a challenge? If we go back to the original ethos, how are you guys figuring out how to balance all of that with, obviously obstacle design and course design and whatnot?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I think it's important to note that what Tough Mudder started on and has really focused on for years has been our core events, our core values and customers, and that certainly hasn't gone anywhere. I still spend a lot of my time on event innovation and obstacle innovation, and the things that we've always really pushed forward and been, I think, I would say, the leader in that space and putting out the best obstacles and attracting people for just the sake of a good time and a fun challenge to do with your friends. So it's not like our entire office is now just sitting around saying like, what's the next race that we can make up? I think we're trying to follow a logical progression here, and the regular, the Tough Mudder full, the Tough Mudder half, the introduction of the 5K. That we're still doing new things in those spaces, as always, to continue to grow those brands. But we think it was a logical progression and something that people wanted to be able to challenge themselves in a new way, and a very well recognized way to do that is through racing and through timed events and competition. And what we're striving to do and doing very carefully is trying to put that out in a way that fits within the ethos of what we do. So we don't think that there has to be, an inherent, or an impossibility in putting out a competitive event because we do events that are not timed and not competitive. We think that they can live in the same atmosphere together, and that we can do it. We can do both better than anyone else can.
And it really gives you guys a great opportunity to, you're really these days, it feels like to me at least, is you're offering something for everybody, especially with the now like the 5K that you've just introduced. So you've got that kind of really something for everybody in the family to find a Tough Mudder event that they can at least kind of dip their toes into this whole world. But,
yeah, and there was a lot of fear when we first put out Tough Mudder half that, what's this? That's not Tough Mudder. And I think people pretty quickly realized that, oh, wow, that allows me to convince a whole lot of people that looked at this before and said, that's not for me, to now come and try it and then come into that world. So I think this will be a similar reaction.
Definitely. And I have to ask, because I feel like I'm used to it now, and I'm sure you guys and Tough Mudder in the offices are, but honestly, Eli, how long did it take you guys to get used to saying Tough Mudder, Tougher Mudder, Toughest Mudder, World Toughest Mudder without jumbling those words together? Because it all makes sense on paper when you read it as like, here's Tough Mudder half, here's Tough Mudder, here's Tougher Mudder. Like it logically makes a lot of sense, but then I found in conversations, I'm like, oh wait, I meant this one.
Yes, it's really difficult. Honestly, we spend a lot of time on coming up with names, and it is something that has been kicked around a lot, and every time we come out with something new, we, even down to obstacle names, we are debating it and putting time and effort into it. But I think there's so many different ways we could have gone with it, and I still I don't struggle with it at all because I'm so close to it. But it is a challenge trying to with all these different things going on, trying to tell people exactly what each one of these products is and how they differ from each other, and where they should slot into it. So hopefully that's a little bit of what I can help people understand today.
Yeah, and I wonder, and maybe this is something that's a down the road, and it's sort of evolving, but you guys spend at Tough Mudder a lot of time on your obstacle innovation and the obstacle innovation team. And with the fact that you have this competitive aspect to pretty much every single event you have now, or it's moving kind of in that direction, is it going to change somewhat the way that when you look at designing obstacles, that maybe there's a modification that you are already thinking about, that like, oh, if this is like an individual's obstacle instead of a team-based obstacle, are you having to kind of rethink some of those designs to how you can make them in a competitive space?
Not necessarily. Our challenge on the obstacle design team is definitely, it's a lot now, whereas we used to just design for Tough Mudder events. But within those, the way we look at it every year, we would look at it from, each of our obstacles had to hit, or we would design it with, one of four things in mind, and that was either teamwork, individual challenge, fun, or courage. So, we would look at what we have out on course this year, what do we want to offer next year, where are we kind of going with our theme for the next year of obstacle design. And you'll see things like this year, we put out Happy Ending, which is kind of your ultimate teamwork obstacle. And, that one we designed that with, the community in mind, and with, what's an obstacle that really everyone is going to love interacting on. And then, yes, we adapted that one to then work for competitive environments that'll be happening in the same place. But then on the other hand, you have obstacles like Kong Infinity, which was designed specifically for Legionnaires, to give them an added challenge, a really cool new feature that's, is pretty damn hard and is going to work extremely well in the competitive space. So I think the framework that we developed and have been using for years now for obstacle design actually just allows us to, to adapt certain features we already have for across the board, or, we can come up with things that work for something more specifically. So, like for TMX, we'll think about things that, are individual based, but that those obstacles absolutely will be able to be utilized elsewhere for, our regular events. So it's actually all the obstacle innovation piece of this really does kind of span all the brands very well.
And I do enjoy that this year you guys are going to be bringing back some of your old obstacles that we haven't seen for a few years. And I hope that massive turd from World's Toughest Mudder back in 2011 is not back. That obstacle wasn't hard. It was just a pain in the ass.
I know. And it's one of the ones that people look at and they say, it looks amazing. It's like, oh my God, I would love to do that. And then you do it and you're like, oh, this is actually way more of a burden. And, it's still cool and it's scary and it's tall, but, that's one of my less favorite obstacles. So I'm not going to tout that one, right? Because I have similar feelings towards it.
And I have to say that Happy Ending gave me a lot of chuckles. Actually, I was laughing hysterically with all the possible titles that could go with the fact that you named an obstacle Happy Ending for this year and in a headline title, and went with a calm one, went with the more tame one, but had some ones that sounded more were not exactly editorial appropriate.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to brainstorm obstacle names. Definitely not all of them, for good reason, make it through to, the final final voting. But that was a fun one. I think that's one that it's in good humor, and I think people will enjoy it, and there's always good banter on course surrounding obstacle names and stuff like that keeps it light. So I think that'll be a fun addition for people to play around with.
Definitely. And before I let you go, I guess, since there's so many different, just to touch back on the competitive side before I let you go, is there a certain, I know this is really hard to say, but is there a certain venue or a certain distance that you're having at a venue this year, maybe a new venue, maybe a returning one, that you're really looking forward to adding or having a competitive aspect at it?
One for me is Atlanta. That is, I've traveled all across the country and some parts of the world now doing this. And when you find a place that has, really amazing mud, it's always really exciting. And there's something about some places in the U.S. like Texas and Atlanta for sure that have just some incredible mud, and it just offers, that's really, it's such a great experience when you get a place like that you can get people in such a beautiful environment that has such unique terrain and mud. I think it's kind of what we're all after in this world, or in this industry. And so that's definitely one. Bringing World's Toughest there is going to be really, really exciting. And then also the tougher World Championships, I think we've got some really great venues there. Whistler was added to that roster. So the Whistler course last year for toughest was insane. And I think that tougher course will be really challenging. Very cool terrain, super hard, super challenging woods, and forest runs. And then likewise Seattle. So the Northwest is definitely coming strong this year with the tougher championship is in Seattle this year. And that also is a really challenging course, very cool terrain. I really like the ones, and I think a lot of the racers like the ones as well, that are, a lot of trail running, kind of varied terrain, varied challenge, and, those are always good. But I haven't even been to so many of the venues that we do go to, so there are many out there that I'm not aware of, but I'd say, those two for me, or those three for me are pretty special.
Definitely. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to the change with World's Toughest Mudder heading to Atlanta, just as a change in scenery, see what a new venue, a new place, new mud, as you just said, brings to the equation. And then as well, with all the rest of the competitive series you guys are doing. So, Eli, thanks so much for, taking just a little bit of your time and kind of talking through some new things that you guys have going on with Tough Mudder and sharing with the crew here at Mud Run Guide.
Yeah, anytime. Glad to do it.